From October 5th till October 12th, 2018, we at Auction House Künker in Osnabrück will hold our fall auctions. Those who collect Bavarian coins can look forward to a big collection of the so-called geschichtstaler. Our film is about this field of collection, which is not only popular in Bavaria. Louis I of Bavaria is one of the most interesting rulers of the 19th century. He lived in an era of transition. His godfather was Louis XVI of France. Thus, the execution of the French king was a harrowing experience for Louis, especially because his father Max Joseph did not rise to the position of King of Bavaria until much later, and was making a living as a French officer when the revolution began. As Crown Prince, Louis enjoyed the company of Bohemians, and he began dreaming of how once he was king he would work closely with the people to do what was the best for his kingdom. Louis' enthusiasm for the constitutional monarchy finds expression in one of his earliest commemorative thalers. It depicts the Constitution column in Gaibach. The structure, built on the initiative of the Count of Schönborn, was so important to Louis that he personally attended the ground-breaking ceremony. Upon its completion in 1828, he immediately requested drafts for a coin. 3 years later, he sent the first specimen of this coin to the Count of Schönborn, along with the words, "I hasten to deliver to its noble constructor this first minted thaler depicting the Constitution column. One fervent supporter of the Constitution sends it to another." Reality caught up with him quicker than he cared for. In 1830, the July Revolution broke out in France. It inspired the German student fraternities to initiate the Hambach Festival. Just imagine that, a liberal demo on Bavarian soil. And on top of that, stubborn parliamentarians attacked the king because of his expensive construction projects, in public at that. This was a bitter disappointment for Louis. He overcame it by telling himself it was only the politicians who were sowing the seeds of discord between him and his people. The Bavarians, on the other hand, were loyal, just as the small dog sitting at the Bavaria's feet. The column Bavaria is leaning onto is reminiscent of the attribute of Roman securitas who constituted a symbol of security in ancient times. This recourse to antiquity should not come as a surprise, as the idea of minting commemorative thalers was inspired by Roman coinage. Franz Ignaz von Streber, director of the Royal Coin Cabinet at the time, suggested creating numismatic pieces of art which should be conducive to the glorification of the state. Louis took up this idea in 1828. In collaboration with the young Carl Friedrich Voigt, he personally developed all of the coin designs, which is why they represent Louis' own notion of the events. And that notion could change, of course. This is manifested most notably in the coin he had minted celebrating his accession to the throne. In fact, it was not made in 1825, as can be read on the coin, but much, much later. In 1828, Louis requested a first draft. At the time, the king is still enthused by the constitutional monarchy. He has himself portrayed during the oath of loyalty to the Constitution. The following drafts are more moderate already. The king is seen motionless. The oath of loyalty to the Constitution is reduced to the legend. The final coinage took place in 1836. By this time, the July Revolution and Hambach Festival have noticeably diminished Louis' enthusiasm for the Constitution. Thus, the oath has been erased from both depiction and legend. The Constitution has been reduced to a book placed underneath the scepter and crown. And anyway, Why does anyone need a constitution? The Bavarians were almost fatefully connected to the Wittelsbach dynasty. Louis had a monument erected to mark this love in front of the ancestral castle of the House of Wittelsbach in Oberwittelsbach. It was immortalized on this commemorative thaler. The extinction of the House of Wittelsbach was not to be feared. This was the message Louis conveyed to his Bavarians with one of the earliest commemorative thalers. We see Queen Therese, Louis' wife, in the middle. To the left, Louis' 4 sons are portrayed. To the right, the 4 daughters. At the very top there is Maximilian, heir to the throne. Then Otto underneath, who would later become King of Greece. Followed by Luitpold, who is known to Bavarians as their Prince Regent. And at the bottom Adalbert, who had just been born at the time of the first draft in 1828. This commemorative thaler became the direct model for the Russian family ruble. It is one of the most sought-after rarities of Russian numismatics. Auction house Künker sold a novodel of the rarest of the 5 types in 2012 at the unbelievable price of 380,000 euros. But back to the Bavarian variety, which can be obtained at a much lower price. Let us compare the draft to its execution. One difference catches your eye. The Latin "Salvation and Felicity of the Fatherland" was changed to "Blessing of Heaven" by Louis' personal request. And so we have arrived at Louis' attitude towards religion, which had nothing liberal to it. We can tell by the fact that Louis, aside from his father, dedicated a coin to only one of his predecessors, Maximilian I, ardent spearhead of the Catholic League during the 30 Years' War. Louis thus approved of the fight against the opponents of Catholicism. This double commemorative thaler emphasizes the message. It depicts the Munich Feldherrnhalle. It glorifies 2 important military figures. Johann of Tilly is on the left. He was Field Marshal of the Catholic League during the 30 Years' War. Whom Louis considered the second most important enemy is demonstrated in the choice of the other general. It is Karl Philipp of Wrede. He was considered one of the most important military leaders of Bavaria in the fight against Napoleon. This takes us to Louis' sore point. He hated the French. They had killed his godfather Louis XVI, and they had chased him out of Strasbourg when he was a little boy. But a king must express his aversion discreetly. Louis did that in form of the obelisk on the Karolinenplatz in Munich. It is dedicated to the 30,000 Bavarians who lost their lives during Napoleon's Russian campaign. The obelisk was cast from the bronze which Bavarian troops had hasted during the Battle of Navarino. And this is how this commemorative thaler is connected to Louis' enthusiasm for anything Greek. The king donated a large part of his income on the Greek War of Independence. This paid off. After 2 other princes had declined with thanks, Otto became King of Greece. This commemorative thaler celebrates the designation of the 16-year-old. All of Hellas, so the coin stated, wanted the young Bavarian to be king. Of course, this was not the case. They wanted the Bavarian funds. They just put up with the king. Greece was a bottomless pit that received the big parts of the Bavarian tax revenue. Not everyone approved of that, which is why Louis reminded his Bavarian people what great sacrifices his family was making. The monument of Aibling depicted on this commemorative thaler is evocative of the separation of a mother from her son. The people of Munich held this financial conduct against Louis I. They did not like the Philhellenic and construction fanatic king at all. But they probably would have put up with him for a little bit longer if he had not made a fool of himself by having an affair with Lola Montes. Louis was 60 years old when the Irish adventurer came to Munich. The aging monarch was swept off his feet, the people of Munich less so. And when the arrogant dancer began influencing politics, they forced their king to chase the scandalous woman out of Bavaria. About the same time, the people of Paris heralded the start of the revolutionary year of 1848. The Bavarians took up the idea, stormed the Munich armory, and demanded extensive concessions. Louis was not willing to grant concessions. He resigned. And eventually he interpreted the events in his own interest on his double commemorative thaler. It is him who passed the crown to his son Maximilian completely by his own choice. And that is the difference between the Roman model and the Bavarian commemorative thalers. While we have to tediously reconstruct the Roman history using coins, we have a vast number of independent sources at our hands from the time of Louis I, which allow us to expose said commemorative thalers for what they always were, pieces of art which should be conducive to the glorification of the state. But that is what makes them so interesting, right? All of us at Auction House Künker are looking forward to welcoming you at our 2018 fall auctions. Should you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us.